It sounds impossible, but it's true. A Miss Grand winner paired with a young actress. Can you believe it? In the glamorous but harsh world of Thai entertainment, where hundreds of new faces appear every year and then disappear just as quickly, the meeting of two young stars who left a deep and lasting impression was not simply luck, but also fate. Faye Malisorn, the name that captivated the whole country when she was crowned Miss Grand Thailand 2016, entered the entertainment industry with the halo of fame, bringing with it both admiration and great pressure. With her sharp beauty, undeniable charisma, and the temperament of a queen who has stood on the most magnificent stage, Faye has become an icon in the eyes of the public. However, the crown has never been the final destination. Inside her, there is a burning desire to assert herself beyond the flashy exterior. Through acting, through storytelling, through transforming into characters that allow her to reveal her truest self. Yoko Apasra, on the other hand, comes from a completely different path. She didn't come in with a crown on her head, nor did she come in with a wave of advertising. Yoko's charm was more subtle, a mix of gentle charm and quiet rebellion. Coming from an ordinary family, she lacked the advantage of fame, but possessed a rare determination. She started with small roles, not very flashy but extremely important stepping stones, building herself from scratch. Yoko represents a new generation of Thai actors, courageous, humble, and genuine, not afraid to test the limits or challenge conventions. Two women, two journeys, seemingly parallel, never intended to intersect. Yet fate brought her to Blank the Series, a drama that promises to refresh the Thai romantic landscape by putting two women at the center of the story. From the moment the production team announced Faye Malisorn as the female lead, curiosity was aroused. Can a beauty queen transform into a convincing actress? Can she carry a complicated love story? Then little-known Yoko Apasra was chosen to star opposite Faye. The pair raised questions and expectations. The first day on set was filled with both excitement and tension. Every actor wanted to prove themselves. Faye arrived calm and composed, exuding professionalism. Yoko, a little shy but determined, made an unspoken promise. She would not let this opportunity slip away. When the director introduced them, "These two are the heart of the story, your chemistry must shine," those words sounded ordinary. But unintentionally, they became the red thread that tied the two fates. From the very first scene, there was something unmistakable. Those watching behind the camera whispered that their chemistry was more genuine than the script. It wasn't just acting, it was a connection that blossomed quietly, naturally. The director, satisfied, smiled and commented, "Perfect," almost as if you two had known each other for a long time. But in fact, until that day, they had barely spoken a word to each other. After filming, it was Faye who broke the silence. She said warmly, "You did well today. I remember my first audition. I was just as nervous." Yoko laughed, suddenly feeling the heavy wall of hierarchy collapse. That brief conversation opened a door. They found common ground, a love for the profession, a desire to grow, and a quiet loneliness that often exists in the entertainment industry. Gradually, the moments outside the studio became their anchor. Eating together, reading lines late into the night, whispering encouragement during intense shoots, these small actions created a safe space for both of them. To outsiders, it looked like a professional camaraderie. But to them, it was the quiet birth of trust and understanding, something rare and precious under the bright spotlight. The audience, always sharp-eyed, soon realized it. Social media was flooded with hashtags with their names, at first cheerful, then warm. Photos of them smiling at each other, exchanging glances during interviews, touching hands at events. Fans collected and exaggerated these moments, creating a new phenomenon, the Faye Yoko couple. To the world, they suddenly became an on-screen couple. To each other, they were simply two women who found comfort and safety in each other. Behind all the noise, neither Faye nor Yoko could have predicted how this relationship would change their lives. Under the glare of the spotlight and the constant chatter of fans and critics, a seed was planted. The seed of friendship, empathy, and perhaps the first traces of love. Simplest things: a look, a laugh, a shared silence. In a world full of noise and prejudice, sometimes just one meeting is all it takes to find the person who is truly right for you. The cameras would switch off, the crew would pack away their gear, and yet the energy between Faye Malisorn and Yoko Apasra seemed to linger in the air long after the set went quiet. Acting side by side in Blank the series was meant to be just another job, two performers carrying out a script. But the truth is, the magic of connection rarely follows a script. It spills over, unscripted, messy, and breathtakingly real. Their earliest rehearsals revealed something unique. Lines exchanged across the table weren't just memorized words, they were conversations layered with empathy. When Yoko stumbled over dialogue, her frustration was visible, but Faye would lean in, gently correcting her tone, almost like a guide pulling her through stormy waters. "Take a breath," Faye would whisper. "You already have it in you." And Yoko, steadied by those words, would find her rhythm again. That tenderness extended beyond rehearsal rooms. Lunch breaks turned into quiet rituals where they split food, laughing about the absurdities of show business, the never-ending takes, the demanding lights, the relentless eyes of an industry always watching. Yoko, who once kept her guard up, began letting it down. She confessed insecurities, fears of being overshadowed, of never being enough. Faye listened, not with pity, but with an openness that made Yoko feel seen. It was the kind of listening that transforms silence into comfort. In turn, Yoko gave Faye something just as valuable: sincerity. For a woman crowned queen of beauty, expectations always weighed heavily. Faye had been praised, judged, every move she made was under scrutiny. But Yoko spoke to her not as the former Miss Grand, not as the actress expected to carry a show, but as a human being who sometimes just needed to laugh without consequence. Around Yoko, Faye rediscovered simplicity, an honesty untainted by reputation. The more they worked together, the clearer it became. Their chemistry wasn't confined to the scenes they filmed. Directors could capture intimacy on screen, but what they couldn't manufacture was the way Faye instinctively shielded Yoko from harsh studio lights, or how Yoko, despite being younger and less experienced, would check on Faye after grueling shoots. These weren't gestures demanded by a role. They were gestures of care, small, consistent, unspoken threads weaving into trust. The crew noticed. The fans noticed. Soon, social media began buzzing with edits and fan accounts declaring them the new screen couple. At first, it was harmless fun, nicknames tossed around, photos reposted with heart emojis, but something deeper stirred within the fandom. They weren't just admiring two pretty faces, they were watching authenticity unfold. Audiences are quick to spot pretenses, yet in Faye and Yoko, they saw companionship that radiated far beyond performance. And as the world began to ship them, the two women quietly leaned into the safety they found in each other. In an industry notorious for rivalry, their partnership became a rare sanctuary. When the pressure mounted, when criticism turned cruel, they turned to one another. Yoko became Faye's sounding board, her late-night confidante. Faye became Yoko's anchor, reminding her she belonged, even when self-doubt screamed otherwise. Still, at this stage, what they shared was not romance. It was deeper in another way. It was friendship elevated to a plane of soulful connection. A triki, as Thais might call it. Someone who knows you not because they must, but because they choose to, relentlessly, faithfully. Their bond wasn't about passion or sparks. It was about trust. And trust, as history has shown, is often the foundation upon which love dares to grow. It's important to pause here, because too often, LGBTQ love stories are told as if they appear overnight in a burst of rebellion or defiance. But the truth is softer, gentler. Many begin exactly like this, through friendship, through late-night conversations, through small acts of care. Before there is love, there is respect. Before there is romance, there is trust. And for Faye Malisorn and Yoko Apasra, this stage of their journey wasn't about fireworks. It was about building a safe harbor in a world that rarely offers one. As their fandom grew louder, so did the whispers of curiosity. Are they really just colleagues? Yet behind the noise, Faye and Yoko weren't rushing to define anything. They were content in the quiet. In every meal shared, every word of encouragement, every laugh after a long day, they were constructing something enduring. Something real. LGBTQ plus love, like any love worth telling, is not always born in a blaze of passion. Sometimes it grows slowly, carefully, in the soil of friendship and trust. It reminds us that love, no matter who it is between, deserves to be nurtured with patience, kindness, and respect. And before we move on, I'd love to hear from you. What country are you watching this video from? Drop it in the comments below, and let's see how far Faye and Yoko's story has reached across the world. The line between friendship and something deeper is often invisible until a moment comes to the fore. For Faye and Yoko, that moment came not in private, but under the bright lights, in front of cameras, fans, and the entire entertainment industry. It was the Best Couple Awards, an honor meant to celebrate on-screen chemistry. But for them, it was deeper, something intimate disguised as a public performance. As they stood side by side, the host announced their names and the crowd erupted in cheers. Yoko glanced at Faye, her eyes flickering with nervous excitement. Faye instinctively reached out to touch Yoko. It was meant to be reassuring, a gesture for the audience. But as their fingers intertwined, there was a pause, just a second, that revealed everything they had left unsaid. The camera caught their smiles, but what the camera could never fully capture was the silent conversation between them. We are more than what they see, right? The applause died down, the speeches rang out, but in that look they exchanged, they spoke a truth their lips were not ready to confess. Backstage, away from the roar of the crowd, the atmosphere became quieter, but no less tense. They laughed awkwardly, brushing off the staff's comments about their perfect chemistry. But that night, with the stage makeup removed and their dresses folded, they found themselves sitting together in the silence of a hotel room. The award lay on the table, glowing faintly under the dim lights. Neither looked at it. They looked at each other. The conversations lasted until the early morning. They spoke not as colleagues, not even as close friends, but as two souls shedding their armor. Yoko admitted her fears about the future, the scrutiny, the whispers, the possibility of losing out on someone she might choose to love. Faye shared her own truths too. The exhaustion of living under constant expectation, the pressure to be admired but rarely understood. With each word, the walls between them crumbled. There were long silences too, but not the uncomfortable kind. They carried a weight, the kind that held 1,000 unspoken confessions. When Yoko took Faye's hand across the table, this time it wasn't because of the cameras. And when Faye didn't pull her hand away, it wasn't a performance. It was permission. It was recognition. From that night on, something changed. They didn't rush to name it. They didn't shout it from the rooftops. They didn't even whisper to their friends. But deep down, the transformation was undeniable. Friendship had blossomed into love. Without fanfare, without drama, but steadily, gently, like the way dawn crept across the horizon without a word of warning. The outside world speculated. Fans circulated theories. The media teased rumors. But Faye and Yoko chose silence, not the silence of fear, but the silence of protection. Their feelings didn't need the confirmation of headlines. After all, love grows best when it's nurtured in privacy, when it's given room to breathe away from the noise. But even in their silence, the signs were there for anyone willing to look. Faye's eyes softened as Yoko spoke. Yoko seemed braver, freer as she stood beside Faye. They were no longer just co-workers. They were two women slowly realizing that their hearts had chosen each other. Love stories are often written in grand gestures, in sudden flashes of lightning. But theirs was different. It was born of patience, nurtured by sincerity, and captured in moments too small for the press to capture. And in those moments, they realized that loving someone, especially when the world tells you it's not what you expected, isn't just a choice, it's an act of courage. Because loving someone, whether openly or secretly, is putting everything on the line: reputation, career, security. But to deny that love is to risk something bigger: your own truth. And Faye and Yoko, in their own way, chose the truth. To love someone, regardless of their gender, is to bravely step into your own heart. LGBTQ+ love deserves to begin as naturally and honestly as any other love. It is no less real, no less valuable, no less courageous. And now I want to know, what country are you watching this story in? Share in the comments below, and let's see how far Faye and Yoko's love story has traveled around the world. The love blossomed, tender and sincere. But in the entertainment industry, private feelings rarely stay private for long. What began as whispers between fans quickly grew into questions from reporters, comments from critics, and speculation that filled the headlines. Every interview seemed to return to the same probing theme. Are you two just friends, or is there more? Faye and Yoko quickly learned that silences were as heavy as words. When they laughed together, people scrutinized the angle of their smiles. When they stood close together, critics measured the distance between them. Just looking at each other for too long became fodder for gossip. And in the endless whirlwind of entertainment news, every detail, no matter how small, could be twisted into a story. The pressure was sometimes overwhelming. Online, their fan community began to splinter. Some cheered them on, declaring their relationship a symbol of representation. Others dismissed it, insisting it was just fan service, or worse, attacking them with vitriolic words. In those moments, it would have been easier to hide, to deny, to retreat into comfort, to pretend that nothing existed between them. But that was not their way. Instead, they chose a quieter form of protest. They simply lived together, letting their actions speak for them. On set, they worked with unwavering professionalism, delivering performances so real and raw that the audience could feel the depth of their connection. Offset, they continued to share small gestures of care. An umbrella for each other when it rained, a hand gently placed on a shoulder, an affectionate look that lasted too long to be missed. And it wasn't just fans who noticed. Directors, producers, even their co-stars began to realize that what Faye and Yoko brought to a scene wasn't just technique, it was presence. It was authenticity. Their chemistry didn't have to be manufactured, and in an industry built on illusion, such authenticity was rare. It became their silent shield, proof that what they shared was worth more than gossip. It was in these subtle yet powerful gestures that many in the LGBTQ+ community saw themselves reflected. For those who had spent years hiding their feelings, afraid of being seen, Faye and Yoko's quiet sincerity felt like validation. They didn't wave rainbow flags on magazine covers, but by letting their humanity shine through, they gave courage to others. Of course, the media kept chasing. Headlines asked, will they admit it? Talk shows searched for answers. And yet Faye and Yoko remained silent. Not out of shame, but out of possessiveness. Their love, fragile and new, belonged to them first and foremost, not to the cameras, not to the tabloids, not to a drama-hungry public. It wasn't always easy. There were days when the weight of expectations weighed heavily, and days when negative comments dug into her mind. Yoko, still young, worried that the industry would turn its back on her. Faye, more experienced but also tired of the constant scrutiny, feared that her personal life would overshadow the work she was trying to build. But in each other, they found resilience. Faye, with years of overcoming judgment as a beauty queen, reminded Yoko to focus on her career, to let her work prove its worth. Yoko, in turn, calmed Faye, reminding her that beyond the spotlight, there was a life worth living, simple, joyful, and without regrets. Through this balance, they created a quiet revolution. They didn't have to shout to be heard. Their love, expressed through their eyes and silence, their art and their honesty, spoke louder than any press release, and slowly people began to understand. Sometimes the most powerful statement is not made with words, but with the courage to live unapologetically. LGBTQ+ community, their story has become a mirror and a light. It reminds people that even in spaces filled with judgment, love can still exist. That even in industries obsessed with image, authenticity can still be powerful. And that even in silence, a declaration can be made. We exist. We love. And that is enough. Same-sex love is never just a private affair between two hearts. It becomes a light in the darkness, guiding those still trapped in fear to the courage to live openly and love freely. It began on screen, two women cast to tell a story. Yet what unfolded in Blank the series was more than fiction. It became a phenomenon. Faye Malisorn, already a household name since her triumph at Miss Grand Thailand 2016, brought elegance and gravitas to her role. Yoko Apasra, still early in her career, infused her character with raw honesty. Together, they delivered a chemistry so authentic that audiences stopped asking whether they were acting and started believing they were simply being. The response was immediate. Fan-created edits flooded TikTok and Twitter. A glance held too long, a laugh shared behind the scenes, a touch that lingered. These moments became viral clips set to love songs. Their names, joined by a hyphen, began trending not only in Thailand but across Asia. For fans, they weren't just actresses, they were the embodiment of a love story that felt both real and revolutionary. Fashion and media took notice. Faye and Yoko appeared in glossy spreads and brand campaigns, not as props but as partners. Dressed in couture gowns or minimalist suits, they stood side by side as equals, radiating not just beauty, but a message. For an industry accustomed to promoting traditional couples, their pairing was radical in its simplicity. Two women celebrated for their connection without apology. What once seemed like a marketing gamble quickly proved to be a cultural breakthrough. Their influence wasn't confined to the lens. At fan meetings, thousands gathered, waving banners and chanting their names. Yoko's playful energy balanced Faye's poised demeanor, creating an electric atmosphere. When asked about the meaning of their work, Yoko answered simply, "Love is love. We tell these stories because they matter." Faye, with quiet conviction, added, "If even one person feels seen, then what we do is worth it." Those words traveled far, quoted on fan pages, translated across languages, etched into the hearts of people who longed to be recognized. Their rise was especially significant in Thailand's entertainment landscape. While BL dramas between men dominated charts and captured international fandoms, stories of women loving women often remained hidden or dismissed as niche. Faye and Yoko shattered that imbalance. Through Blank the series, they proved that female-female love stories could resonate just as deeply, just as universally. They became pioneers in a space where representation was scarce, showing producers and networks that audiences were ready for more. The ripple effects reached far beyond Thailand. In Manila, a fan wrote online, "Watching them gave me courage to come out to my sister." In Seoul, edits of their scenes gained millions of views. In Los Angeles, students cited their story in essays about LGBTQ+ visibility in global media. These weren't just compliments to celebrities, they were confessions of survival, declarations of hope. As their fame grew, so did the platforms that carried their message. Major magazines began treating them not just as entertainers, but as voices in a cultural shift. Articles analyzed how their storylines challenged norms. Panels invited them to speak about representation, not because they sought activism, but because their existence together had already become activism in itself. Even casual interviews turned into lessons on empathy and authenticity, with their words repeated by fans who felt empowered to live more openly. And their presence influenced more than fans. Inside the industry, younger actors began to cite Faye and Yoko as proof that taking on queer roles could build, not break, a career. Directors saw the demand for girls' love stories, and writers pitched scripts once considered too risky. Change began in boardrooms, in greenlit projects, in casting calls that suddenly included space for love between women. Through it all, what resonated most was not grand speeches or choreographed moments, but authenticity. They didn't need to wear rainbow flags to be symbols. Their presence, their sincerity, their ease in each other's company spoke louder than slogans ever could. And for millions, that was enough. In them, fans found both a mirror and a beacon. A mirror reflecting their hidden desires, their silent fears, their longing to be seen. And a beacon pointing forward, toward a world where love does not need to be explained, only lived. For some, they became the courage to whisper the truth. For others, they were proof that truth could be shouted without shame. When LGBTQ+ love is allowed to shine through art and media, it transforms from private affection into a force for community. The love Faye Malisorn and Yoko Apasra brought to the screen and beyond it is more than a story. It is a lifeline, reminding millions that love in every form is powerful, worthy, and unstoppable. The cameras turned off, the crew began packing, and yet the energy between them lingered. After another long day on set, Faye Malisorn and Yoko Apasra walked together into the night, laughter echoing in the quiet air. Their hands brushed, then intertwined, not as a scene for an audience, but as something private, real, unscripted. It was in these fleeting moments that their story truly lived. They have never announced a relationship. They have never needed to. Their truth exists in the way Yoko seems steadier when Faye is near, in the way Faye's gaze softens when Yoko laughs. Fans and media chase labels, but the essence has always been clear. Love does not need validation from headlines. It only needs two people who choose each other. For Faye, the horizon stretches wide. Since her Miss Grand Thailand victory in 2016, she has reinvented herself as more than a beauty queen. Her performances, from light-hearted roles in Miss Culinary to her layered portrayal in Blank the series, have cemented her as an actress of depth and ambition. For Yoko, the path is just beginning. Her supporting role in Bad Buddy 2021 introduced her to audiences. Her breakout in Affair 2024 showcased her ability to command emotional intensity. And with Harmony Secret 2025 on the horizon, she's poised to take her place among Thailand's most promising young stars. Their professional journeys may diverge, but their personal bond remains an anchor. In an industry that thrives on spectacle, their decision to keep love unspoken has become its own form of strength. Privacy for them is not about fear, it is about protection. Because love, when genuine, is sacred, and sometimes the most radical act is to nurture it quietly. The beauty of their story lies in its refusal to end. Audiences expect final kisses, fade-outs, neat conclusions, but life rarely offers such closure. Instead, their story continues, unwritten and alive. in interviews where they exchange knowing glances, in fan meetings where their laughter rings louder than the questions, in the way they walk together when the cameras are no longer watching. For the LGBTQ+ community, their quiet presence has been revolutionary. Representation is often imagined as loud, defiant, flamboyant, but Faye and Yoko have shown that authenticity itself can be radical. In their silences, people find courage. In their small gestures, people find validation. In their journey, people find proof that love does not have to conform to be real. Perhaps that is why their impact endures. Because beyond the speculation, beyond the fame, what they offer is a reminder that love is not about grand declarations. It is about the daily choice to care, to protect, to stand together. And whether they ever name it or not, the story they have written resonates deeply. Two women who found in each other a place of ease in a world that rarely offers it. And yet, the promise of tomorrow may be the most beautiful part. New scripts will come, new roles will challenge them, and audiences will continue to watch their journeys unfold. But no matter how their careers evolve, the essence of their bond is already etched in the hearts of those who believe in them. It is a reminder that love's greatest strength is not in certainty, but in possibility. Theirs is not a closed book, it is a story still being written, and each new chapter holds the hope of greater freedom, deeper trust, and lasting joy. Love stories rarely end with a neat full stop. They are living, breathing journeys that continue to unfold, quietly shaping the people within them and those who witness them. For Faye Malisorn and Yoko Apasra, what began as two strangers cast together has become something far greater. A reminder that connection, trust, and love, no matter who it is between, can transcend scripts, cameras, and even the harshest spotlight. Their story tells us that love does not need grand declarations to be real. Sometimes it lives in silence, in small gestures, in the courage to simply be true to one another. And in that authenticity, they have given millions a reason to believe again. In representation, in courage, in the possibility that love itself is the most powerful revolution of all. So perhaps the true ending is not an ending at all. It is an opening to more stories of women who dare to love, to more voices that deserve to be heard, and to a future where love in every form can stand tall without fear. If this story touched you, don't just keep it in your heart, share it, talk about it, and let it remind you that your truth also deserves to be lived openly. Because every act of love, no matter how quiet, can inspire change. And now I want to hear from you. What did you feel while watching this journey? And which country are you tuning in from? Drop a comment below, and let's see how far Faye and Yoko's story has traveled across the world.